Welcome back to History's Chronicles of Intrigue, where we uncover the shadows of the past that shaped our world. Today, we're diving deep into forgotten battles that slipped right through the cracks of your history textbooks, but altered the course of our world forever. Now, these aren't your famous Gettysburgs or your epic Normandies. These are the underdogs. The ripple effect wars that secretly changed technology, redrew borders, and toppled empires from the inside out. Over the next 10 minutes, we'll explore 4 of these pivotal, yet overlooked confrontations. Spanning from the ancient sands of Central Asia to the modern fronts of World War II. So, buckle up. This is the story of how the world really turned. Let's begin. Imagine the year is 751 AD. The mighty Tang Dynasty of China is relentlessly pushing west, hungry for absolute control over the lucrative Silk Road. As they advance, they collide with the rising Abbasid Caliphate, a powerful Islamic empire backed by fierce Tibetan and Turkic allies. Their fateful meeting point? The Talas River in what is now modern-day Kyrgyzstan. What initially started as a minor border skirmish quickly exploded into a brutal 5-day bloodbath. Picture the scene: tens of thousands of elite Chinese crossbowmen, unleashing volleys of bolts against the thunderous charge of Arab cavalry. Over 100,000 troops clashed in desperate, brutal hand-to-hand combat under the unforgiving sun. In the end, the Abbasids emerged victorious. But here's where the real intrigue begins. Among the thousands of Chinese soldiers captured by the Abbasids were skilled artisans, including papermakers. Under interrogation, these prisoners revealed the secret of paper production, a technology China had guarded for centuries. The Arabs quickly understood its potential, perfected the process, and began spreading it across their vast empire, eventually into Europe. Think about that for a second. Without the Battle of Talas, there would be no mass production of books in the Middle East or Europe. No Renaissance printing press revolutionizing communication. No widespread explosion of knowledge that fueled scientific and cultural advancements. This single, obscure battle didn't just redraw a map in a remote corner of the world. It democratized ideas. It lit the fuse for the intellectual revolutions that built the modern world we live in today. The casualties were staggering. Around 20,000 soldiers lost their lives. But the real casualty of the Battle of Talas: ignorance itself. Now, let's fast forward 5 centuries to the year 1260. The Mongol Empire, under the command of the fearsome Hulagu Khan, had steamrolled across Asia and the Middle East. They were an unstoppable force of nature, having sacked legendary cities like Baghdad and leaving a trail of destruction and millions dead in their wake. Their gaze turned next to Egypt, the last major Islamic power standing in their way. They sent a chilling ultimatum to the Mamluk Sultan, Qutuz: surrender or die. Qutuz, a former slave who had risen to become sultan, refused to bow. In a stunning act of defiance, he rallied his army of 20,000 elite Mamluk slave soldiers to face the Mongol vanguard, which numbered around 10,000. They met at Ain Jalut, the spring of Goliath, in the Jezreel Valley. The Mamluks, knowing they couldn't win a straight fight, devised a brilliant strategy. They used feigned retreats to lure the overconfident Mongols deeper into the valley, straight into a perfectly laid ambush. Suddenly, the surrounding hillsides erupted with hidden Mamluk troops. A storm of arrows rained down on the trapped Mongols, followed by a ferocious charge of cavalry. Swords clashed in the swirling dust as the two armies fought with savage intensity. The Mongols, who were already exhausted from decades of relentless conquest and overextension of their supply lines, finally broke for the first time in their history. Hulag's forces shattered completely. Adodi retreated from the region, never to return west. Why was this battle so world-changing? Ain Jalut halted the Mongol juggernaut in its tracks. It saved the Islamic world from annihilation and preserved Cairo as a vital center of art for centuries to come. It effectively marked the Mongol Empire's westernmost limit, allowing Europe a crucial chance to breathe and evolve without the threat of Mongol domination. Just imagine for a moment a history where the Mongols conquered the Mediterranean. Our world would be unrecognizable. Over 10,000 soldiers died at Ain Jalut, but in their sacrifice, entire civilizations were preserved. Now, let us leap forward to World War II and its most forgotten theater of war. The year is 1944, in the steamy, disease-ridden jungles of northeast India. Japan, growing desperate to sever the Allied supply lines that were keeping China in the fight, launches Operation Yugo. A massive force of 85,000 Japanese troops invades British India, laying siege to the key strategic outposts of Imphal and Kohima. What happened next was one of the most brutal and heroic stands of the entire war. At Kohima, a tiny garrison of just 1,500 British, Indian, and Gurkha soldiers held a small hill, famously centered around a tennis court, against 15,000 determined Japanese attackers. For 2 weeks, they fought in unimaginable conditions. Hand grenades were lobbed back and forth across the tennis court like deadly tennis balls. Soldiers fought in muddy, waterlogged trenches amidst relentless monsoons and rampant disease. Meanwhile, at Imphal, a larger force of 60,000 defenders repelled wave after wave of Japanese assaults in brutal, close-quarters combat. With supply lines cut, both sides faced starvation. The Allies survived on airdrop supplies, while the Japanese were forced to forage in the jungle. After months of hellish fighting, the Allies finally broke the siege. The Japanese forces were utterly decimated, not just by combat, but by famine and malaria. Over 50,000 of their soldiers were dead or wounded. This bloody campaign, later dubbed the Stalingrad of the East, was a catastrophic defeat for Japan. It stopped their advance into India dead in its tracks, preventing a potential link-up with Axis forces in the West and saving the entire subcontinent from occupation. This victory shifted the momentum of the war in the Pacific, hastening Japan's ultimate defeat. Without the victory at Kohima and Imphal, colonial India might have fallen, profoundly altering the path to its independence and reshaping the landscape of post-war global alliances. For our final stop, we travel back to 1532. To the high, thin air of the Andes Mountains in Peru, here the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro, leading a minuscule force of just 168 soldiers, comes face to face with the colossal Inca Empire and its 80,000-strong army, led by the divine emperor Atahualpa. The Inca Empire was just emerging from a bloody civil war, and Atahualpa, confident in his overwhelming numbers, severely underestimated the strange bearded foreigners. He agreed to meet them for a parley in the Grand Plaza of the city of Cajamarca. Arriving with thousands of his lightly armed retainers, it was a fatal mistake. Pizarro had sprung a trap. As Atahualpa entered the square, hidden Spanish cannons roared to life, cavalrymen on armored horses, creatures the Incas had never seen before, charged from the surrounding alleyways, crashing into the terrified crowd. The Spanish, wielding steel swords and armor, slaughtered the Incas, who were armed mostly with clubs and cloth armor. In just a few hours, thousands of Incas lay dead, and Atahualpa himself was captured. With its emperor a hostage, the vast and sophisticated Inca Empire began to crumble. The battle's casualties were shockingly one-sided. An estimated 7,000 Incas were killed, with 0 Spanish losses. The Battle of Cajamarca wasn't just a conquest. It was the event that sparked the massive Columbian exchange. It flooded Europe with New World treasures like silver, potatoes, and tomatoes, which in turn fueled the rise of capitalism and global trade. But it also unleashed devastating pandemics and centuries of colonialism that reshaped demographics across the entire globe. One single brutal ambush in a mountain square gave birth to the modern Americas as we know them. It may seem forgotten, but its echoes define our interconnected planet to this very day. So there you have it, Battle of Talas, Ain Jalut, Kohima, Imphal, and Cajamarca. For battles largely overlooked that prove history often hinges on the moments we forget. They were responsible for spreading revolutionary ideas, halting unstoppable empires, shifting the tides of global wars, and connecting continents in ways no one could have predicted. Just think, what if a single one of these battles had gone the other way? The world we know today would simply vanish. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the shadows of history, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell for more History's Chronicles of Intrigue. And I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what forgotten battle you think changed everything? Next time, we're tackling the secrets of history's most mysterious secret societies. You won't want to miss it. Until then, stay intrigued. Thanks for watching.